Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Esports Makers podcast. My name is Sam, aka Just Casual. I'm your host today, and I have special guest with me, Parks. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, that's really good to hear. So let's
Yeah.
actually jump right into it. I know we have a few spicy topics that we want to talk about, but for everyone that surprisingly doesn't know who you are, why don't you give us like a quick synopsis of like who you are, what you do in esports, and then we can start talking about how you got into esports a little bit.
All right, sounds good. I think there are probably quite a few people who don't know who I am, which is totally fine. Um, but yeah, my name is Parks. I go by Parkeso. Everyone gets confused with the spelling, but it's my own fault. So whatever. Oops. I am. I guess you. Some people say, and I guess sometimes I say, I'm an esports journalist. Really, I'm more like an esports content creator that does news stuff as well. A lot of the journalism stuff I want to do, either I don't do it or it ends up not working out. So really, I'm just more like a content creator, but getting into photography and stuff, trying to, I don't know, carve out a little space in esports. But that's me. I work for Inven Global right now, full time, and I mostly cover League. So if you guys like League of Legends, follow me. And if you don't, probably don't follow me because that's all I talk about. But yeah, that's pretty much me.
All right, cool. So let's get the quick talk about how you got into esports. Like, what got you into esports? Everyone wants to get into esports. It's their dream, and then they don't know how to do it. And especially, I think, as whether you want to label yourself as an esports journalist or a content creator, that is definitely something that's really, what I've seen is hard to get paid, especially for a full-time job. So how did you get that journey started?
All right, how far back are you? Are you wanting to just get the professional side, or are you thinking like when you say how did I get into esports? Because that was like as a fan like a number of years ago, which
Yeah.
then inspired this.
Yeah, I professionally. Once you became a fan and you're like, wait, could I have a career in esports? What happened? How'd that happen?
A much shorter story, so that's probably good for the better. As far as getting into the industry, I'd been a fan for a few years. I found myself in LA, just kind of had a job opportunity doing some nonprofit work. Gave that a shot for about a year. It was something that I'm still interested in, but it was not going to be a good short-term thing for me. And I was in LA and was like, wait a second. I was actually working in Venice, just about 2 miles or so from the Riot headquarters. For some reason, I never went to the LCS throughout the entire year. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I need a career change. Why don't I look into this? And so I did. And I did I had a different job, actually. I was working just like a random office job. And I did a bunch of 80-hour work weeks or whatever, just doing anything that I could to get into esports. So instead of playing games, I was watching more games and covering and talking to people and whatever. And then I got a random position, and then I got another random position, and I was freelancing, and then eventually now I'm full-time. So it was a decently long, a couple-year journey to get to a full-time position. And it took a lot of really stupid work. But it was just the only thing that was ever going to be satisfying to me, I think. And that was I realized that, and I was like, I'm either going to be miserable just doing whatever job I end up with, or I'm just going to work really hard for a couple years, and then I'll be content and happy and excited to work every day. So
Nice. That's cool.
that's what I did.
It's an
Yeah.
inspiring story.
Thank you.
So, I know you wanted to talk about this, and I'm gonna plug one of my YouTube videos that I put out recently was really talking about free work and how people should be approaching it. And I'm guessing somewhere in those 80-hour grinds,
Yeah.
you had to do free work. So I know you had some opinions. You want to just start talking about it and see where it goes?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that video, when I saw you put it out about a week ago, and I knew that I was going to be talking here, I was like, oh God, this could be really bad. This could be so bad. We might hate each other. But no, actually, I think I agreed with a lot of what you said.
Cool.
So if you haven't seen Sam's video, on Working for Free in Esports. You should go watch it. It's on his YouTube. So if you're watching on Twitch right now, go watch it later. If you're watching on YouTube, just like pause this and go open that one up, and then come back. Please come back. But yeah, I worked for one of the esports wikis for like 8 months or something, and that was the first thing. It was actually right at the end, right before I quit doing the nonprofit work. I applied to so many different Riot positions that I felt like I was qualified for, but like I've come to know now that like I wasn't what they were going to be looking for.
Yeah.
And probably still not even close.
Yeah, I've been there 100%.
Yeah. So, at the time I was like, why aren't they talking to me? I'm so good for this. But it makes a lot more sense now that I have actual life experience. But that was the first thing that I got. And they, I kind of did this weird dry application thing. And then they're like, hey, we'd love to talk to you. And it just kind of worked out. And so I was covering the LPL for a while. I did Worlds 2017, pretty much only focusing on the LPL, talking about their gameplay, doing a bunch of stats and data entry and whatever. And that was just entirely after work. Of course, the LPL schedule is really weird. Mm-hmm. And I had work starting at 7 a.m. It was like 7 to 4, I think. And so I would usually do like stats and data stuff over my lunch break. I had a 1 hour lunch break, and I would literally spend the full hour entering all this information on a site so that it's only like 4 or 5 hours delayed.
And like with like a sandwich in your hand while you're typing.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And then after work, I would go to the gym because my work paid for a gym membership, which was 1 mile away. So I would jog to the gym, work out for like an hour, and then jog back to the office. And we had so much snacks and like coffee and stuff. So then I would just stay at the office for like 4 or 5 hours every night. I would leave the office at about like 11, sometimes midnight. And I would just either watch games, do more like stats and data entry. I eventually started building out parts of the website. So there are like whole sections that never existed until I just decided to build them. So I was just trying to figure out, I was like teaching myself how to code. I actually wrote a program because I got super bored with like the way that I had to fill out all these like stats sheets. So I wrote a program so that then I would I cut my stuff. I started to have lunch. Essentially is what I did. It allowed me to eat lunch. So it was really cool because it was the kind of thing where I don't have to do this, but if I feel like it's worth it, if I feel like this is where I want to be in my career, then this is all I can think of. Mm-hmm. I don't know who. I actually reached out to Travis. It's really funny, and he probably doesn't know, but that was right when Yahoo closed down.
Oh.
And like within the week, and that was 2016, I think. 2016 Worlds, right after that, I think is when Yahoo closed. And it was like, I saw all of his messages like, oh my God, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, we'll make it for sure. And I was like, what can I do for you? But I didn't have any skills or anything at all at the time. Anyway, I just realized that I'm going to have to teach myself stuff. I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to work for free. And eventually I did. And that got me, like, people there knew some other random people at a publication. And the person that they were supposed to be sending to the LCS suddenly couldn't go. And so like 3 days before or 5 days before the LCS started in 2018, this random dude called me and he was like, hey, is this Parks? I'm like, what? Yes. Like, what? Who's the scammer? And he's like, wait, please don't hang up. Can you cover the LCS for us? And I was like, what?
Best telemarketer ever.
Yeah, I know. And so, I started covering the LCS. That was for free as well. I was still doing the wiki stuff. I was doing LCS on the weekends. So all of a sudden I'm working 7 days a week.
Oh my gosh.
I would wake up at, 9 or 10 or something on Saturday, which felt great compared to my 6 a.m. wake ups for work. I'd drive to the LCS. I'd come back at like 10 p.m. or something. And then I would usually edit stuff, that night and throughout the week. So it just gave me more stuff to do, but I really liked it. And then eventually, 3 or 4 months later, I quit my job, flew out to Berlin, and went to MSI. I didn't know a single person there.
Oh my god.
Randomly, Darius, who used to work for the Shot Caller, he was like, hey, I heard you were coming out here. Like, some of the people who I know like said that you're kind of a cool guy. If you need a place to stay or if you need someone to help you, visit, like go around the city or whatever, let me know. And so I ended up staying with him for a week. I was in like Airbnbs and hostels and stuff otherwise, and went to Paris, and it was just cool. And I realized this is it. Like, I quit my job to do it with the like potential of, okay, maybe I'm going to run back sheepishly like a month later and just be like, well, I didn't really love it, or it's not going to work out. But I did. I loved it. And then I don't know, invested my time even more. And luckily it ended up working out to where I could pay rent and stuff. But working for free got me here. So I do think that there's a problem. As far as, and I know this was a really big point, obviously, is that you were saying it's a very helpful thing, but just be mindful of why and who it's for, and if they could be paying you and if they should be paying you. So I definitely agree with that. And I think it's really frustrating a lot of times to see people get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And it happens across the industry. It's not just like only journalism or only this or that or the other. But at the same time, if you can do it for free on top of another job, then that's when you know that you like it and that it's going to be worth it. Because it's still, even if you're getting paid for it, a lot of the times the stuff is really hard and frustrating. So I think it's a good test.
I think that's a super good point, because like people don't even work well at their jobs when they get paid full-time income, So if you're doing something and like, yeah, you think, oh, I want to do esports, right? Like, it sounds really cool. No idea what to do. I just like, I love esports, so I just want to do it. Okay, then try doing it for free and see if you still love it. Because even like working in esports full-time for just over a year now, like paid, my relationship with esports has changed too. Like, I don't watch every LCS game anymore. One, because like I can't. One, also I realized I don't need to watch every single LCS game and be able to like still be good at my job. But yeah, my relationship with esports has changed. I still love it. It's just different. It's like my job now. And at least the cool thing about this though is that I at least care and I'm invested, versus like random companies that I'm making them money being like grunt work and doing stuff that some days are okay, but having crappy people I'm working with or managers, or getting screwed over by big companies, which probably still can happen in esports. But like, I at least like care about like the players and like how we're representing them in our docuseries, or what kind of social, like what making things for our fans that our fans will like, and even like trying to figure out how to connect our fans with players, or figuring out how to get our players more money, like because I'm like helping with their YouTube channels, like those kind of things. So I actually like care, which is like such a weird thing for me still. Like, it blows my mind still that like I care about my company like so much, and I feel that relationship with esports. But yeah, I don't watch as much esports as I did when I was grinding really, really hard to get into it. But oh man, wow, that's a crazy story.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. Like, people sometimes ask me like, oh, hey, like you do esports journalism for the LCS. Like, what did you think of XYZ game? And I'm like, how do I tell them? I did not watch that one. I watch most of them. I mean, it is my job, obviously, to watch the LCS, and I do love it. But it's not quite the same anymore, which is tragic in some ways. But at the same, like, I don't know, it's never going to be the same once it's your job. You'll always get annoyed at certain things. So
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and that's why I always tell people when they're like, oh, like I kind of want to get into esports. I'm like, okay, look, it's controversial, but just do something for free for at least 2 months or something on top of your regular job.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you just try and quit and make it work and then it's not perfect, it's just going to be like wasted time. Because I mean, there are a lot of frustrating things about the industry.
Yeah.
And just like with any job, you're going to get, like, it's not going to be as glamorous
Mm-hmm.
as before you have the job. Because yeah, it looks great, but
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people put an esports job on a pedestal. And
mhm.
then like it's like the same thing with like, oh, never meet your heroes, or like these kind of things. Like it always looks so amazing from the outside, and then you get in, it's like, oh, this is kind of the same thing, just like with a different skin or something, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it is, I really do enjoy it, but it's different, and it's not like the solution to everyone's problems. And oh my gosh, when you said like, oh, just quit your like people are trying to quit their job and just like go for it, I'm like, oh, don't do that. Please don't do that. Like unless you're like no, actually I
I
don't
mean,
even
if
want
you're
to say.
sitting on a trust fund, do whatever you want, but
Mhm.
otherwise, like, please keep your job.
Yeah, I mean, and
Test it out.
you hear this with like Twitch streamers too. They're like, oh, like I just heard a story. Someone else was telling a story like, oh yeah, someone came in my Twitch chat. It's like, how do I become a Twitch streamer? I just sold my car so I could do this for 3 more months. I'm just like, oh, no, like why, like why would you do that? But yeah, it's crazy. And then, like I wonder, um, like, do you think it's different for people now that are in college trying to get into esports versus like when you were that
Uh,
age?
Probably. So, and I mean, this is, I'll touch on it. This is the kind of the weird part of my story, I guess. All right, the whole thing is kind of weird, but um, I grew up in rural Texas,
Uh-huh.
and we didn't, like, video games didn't exist, and so like I knew of RuneScape. That was it. And so I went to college, and for the full, like my full freshman year of college, that was still kind of it. And then it was my sophomore year of college roommates who played League and kind of introduced me to the LCS. I kind of thought it was really stupid for a little while, and
Mhm.
then it just kind of became the thing that I did with my roommates. Like we'd come home and we'd play ARAMs together or whatever.
Nice.
Um, and then the spring season happened, and we started watching, and Bjergsen was really big at the time, popping off. And so we were just like, oh, like, wait, this is actually kind of cool. And that was, to me, that was my introduction of esports. Because up until then, even through my freshman year of college, the thought of people playing games competitively against each other was like, that didn't exist. And
Mhm.
so, um, wait, what was the original question?
Like I guess our uh people that are in college now,
Oh,
the
yeah.
way that they get into esports is probably different from maybe the way that we've had to, or maybe it's the same. I'm not. I kind of curious about your thoughts on that.
Well, so I guess I don't really have like a great understanding, because then, like, I didn't even realize it until essentially like halfway through my sophomore
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
And even then it was just like, it's only the LCS. There's
hmm,
nothing else. And
yeah,
then,
yeah.
oh, well, I mean, okay, there's World, so there must be something else out there.
Uh-huh.
But that's so far out of my reach.
Yeah.
Like at the time, LA for me was still non-existent. Like I don't know I don't know how long you've been here, but at least if you grow up in rural Texas, Los Angeles is actually just an idea. It's not a place.
No,
It's just a concept.
California is just Hollywood. The whole thing is just Hollywood, right? Yeah, no, I grew
Exactly.
up in a small town in Ohio. I've only been out in LA
Perfect. Yeah.
since 2 years now. 2 years? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
I
you
totally get
probably know exactly what I'm talking
it. Yeah,
about.
something
Like
similar.
LA
Yeah.
is just a concept. And then, like, I had never traveled anywhere. Like I knew nothing. Like Korea for me was like really good at League of Legends. And so, through the rest of my college, and then especially when I came out to LA, that was when I like realized like this is a much bigger thing. Like
Hmm.
there's more than just League.
Yeah.
Um, like not only is it not just RuneScape, it's also not just League, and it's also very global. Um, and so I don't know. I mean, I look at, there are obviously a bunch of college programs, and there was even stuff at mine as well, and I like it just didn't make sense to me. Like, why would we have an esports program at my college when I was there? And then now I'm like, we need more. And I think, probably a lot of stuff has grown. But I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully there are more opportunities, and hopefully with Riot, they've announced recently that they want to do more stuff with collegiate and with amateur. And so they're hiring someone, and hopefully that will, further fund some of the opportunities that are happening. And promote that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I guess like at least I was kind of similar to you, even though we're probably in college different years. Like I didn't know esports was really a thing, and it wasn't until maybe like when I was leaving college where esports was like starting to become like legit. And I remember watching like the first DreamHack. I remember Doublelift playing Blitzcrank, and everyone was like, "Wow, this is amazing." And like him playing Poppy. Those were the two champions that he was playing, and it was like old Poppy. And like at least now, I think college students are able to be like, esports is a thing that I could go into, right?
Sure.
I don't necessarily think you like need some esports degree program or anything. Maybe, but I don't think so. Like actually at Golden Guardians, I think a handful of our hires were people that weren't in the esports industry, but they're like, oh, I played games, I played League, but they're like really good at what they do. An example of this is who used to be our art director, now our creative director, Crystal. Like she came from the agency world, so she just like knows how to put together a mood board, a pitch deck, and like present all these ideas for like merch or like our spring split like campaign, these kind of things that I feel like, I don't know what art school looks like, but I feel like if you just came out of college and then decided to start getting into graphic design or something, you wouldn't necessarily have that kind of experience. But she worked in an agency professionally in companies that have like crazy deadlines and high profile clients, and you like show this work, and then you come into esports where you've played games, you're interested in games, and like at least you'll enjoy esports, which she does, and she's like really invested in her players and stuff. But like people that come outside of the scene that like the scene, I feel like brings so much, and I want to see more of that. And I think one thing that I want to do a video on this, but I don't really know too much about it, but I really think people might need to come out of college being like, I'm going to get a business degree, work for JP Morgan or some like big firms or something, like companies, for like 3 years and learn as much as I can while I do 3 years of free work or like get some freelance gigs, make some like network a little bit, and then get into esports and like actually be like, this is how you run a business, or like this is what I learned, and we're gonna actually implement it rather than I think this will work, let's try this out, okay, that was kind of cool, let's try this out, and then finally 3 years down the line you kind of get it, and then you're starting to actually like bring profit to your organization or team or whatever. I feel like that should be the route for college students. But I'm not sure
think
yet.
I mean, based on one of the earlier points you made, I agree that I think more like quote non-endemics would be helpful for the scene. But it is a really weird thing where they also have to respect it, and they have to appreciate it, and they have to enjoy it. Because I've seen people who are non-endemics that like what you were saying, it's like, oh, well, I have some connection, or I have some like fascination with it, and it is fun, and it's fun to do my work and whatever, and that's great. But then there are others that are like, if they don't buy into it, then it's not helpful. Like all of your expertise and whatever level of professionalism that you have, which is probably much higher than our industry, and all of that, all of your experience is not going to be helpful if you really don't care. And in some ways, potentially harmful.
No, that's a really good point.
But yeah, at the same time, if you're just like a kid or someone with no experience, and you're trying to, you just love esports, but you don't have a skill set or like a purpose or a reason or anything, then yeah, it's like how much can you help progress the industry?
Yeah, and
It just kind of like depends on all of your hard work and luck, and sometimes, it's kind of nice to have people who know what they're doing, who can create a mood board and deliver it on time to the right client who
yeah,
is used to having, all of these things delivered on time. Because a lot of times it doesn't work out that way in this industry.
yeah. No, it's oh man, and the thing is, like, this industry right now either runs really really lean or runs on big fat promises like checks from like big investors, you know.
Yeah.
So I think there are at least a few, at least LCS teams, like a couple. I think maybe Team Liquid and 100 Thieves probably run at a profit. I'm pretty sure those two, but I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a business person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
either way, like, so when you hire someone, you know, the salary costs a lot of money, benefits cost a lot of money, all the like time costs a lot of money. So like having someone that's able to come in and just like know how to do something and not have to teach them, and like they're able to work efficiently right away, like that's, oh, it's such a game, it's such a game changer. It's so helpful, and yeah, totally. So yeah, I hope to see that. I don't know. Do you, I one thing that I heard when I was before I got into the esports scene, which made me like very envious and unnecessary disgruntled, was that there's so many people that almost got grandfathered into esports work, but that didn't know how to do their jobs and that were like
Oh,
completely unqualified, but they kept getting hired because people trusted
because they
them,
need it.
maybe. Or do you think that's an issue right now, or do you have any
It
insight
is
in that?
still a rampant issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are a bunch of people. I mean, honestly, like I could be one of them. You could very easily consider me a person who is here just because like people know me, um, and like I've kind of just been around. I think at the very start of my career, the one thing I did, on top of like the honestly the bullshit of working until midnight every day, like waking up at 6, going home at midnight, going to bed at 2 or whatever, and then doing that also on Saturday and Sunday. What I would do at the LCS is when everybody else was watching the games, I actually went down to the player meetup things and I
Mhm.
talked to the coaches and managers.
Oh.
And I actually wore a suit every single day, the entire first split. I don't think I ever showed up without a suit on. And I stopped doing that because players that didn't know me, especially, would be like either I am a suit, like I'm some dude who's not really supposed to be here, so like they don't really care about me,
Uh-huh.
or they get intimidated. It was like always one of the two,
Hmm.
and very rarely did it feel easy to just kind of connect with someone or have a good conversation when I was wearing a suit and they're wearing like a nylon jersey or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and so I stopped doing that, but it was really helpful when I would go down and talk to coaches and team managers, and that's how I like set myself apart
Hmm.
because the content I was doing was not good. I didn't know what I was doing, and I still remember my first ever interview. It was with Elimination, and
Oh, nice.
Lemon, if you ever see this, I'm so sorry. Interview was awful. We still ran it anyway. It didn't matter. Um, but like I didn't know what I was doing, but I did know that talking to people was going to be important.
Yeah.
And still, I don't really know what I'm doing. Um, but like, I think that's the case for a lot of people that are here, and I think that's why it's very helpful to have non-endemics in the scene,
Hmm.
that have experience somewhere else.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we need a mix. I think if we just tried to replace everyone, it really wouldn't work. Um, but yeah, I think part of the reason why we haven't grown more is because we have just relied on recycling people and sticking to the status quo and not disrupting anything. And so I do think that's one of the kind of the bigger problems right now.
Yeah. And like I remember I was talking to someone about this with for example, like coaching staff, right?
Hmm.
Which again, I don't know that much about, so whatever. But uh his thought was like, oh, I kind of want to get into the scene, not necessarily a head coach, but like maybe something like an analyst, maybe get to a head coach position, assistant coach, something like that. But from the outside, he's like, oh, every team's just recycling LCS coaches. I'm like, yeah, because it's how do you take someone that has no, you don't know what their background is. Maybe they have some YouTube videos, but like hasn't actually like dealt with players or done these specific things that seem, at least we think, is like very unique and special to esports. Whether that's true or not, I'm not exactly sure, but it does feel like a very unique problem, very unique individuals to deal with. Because even like with traditional sports, these kids are brought up from pee-wee, high school. They know how to deal with their coaches versus esports. It's completely different. Like way you get into esports, and egos are even different in different ways. The life and maturity, all these kind of things are different. So it's like, why would, and then when I think about hiring, like, why wouldn't you take the safe pick? Because you pick up a coach that came from another team, or you get someone random that no one knows, and then you get flamed really hard, and if it works out poorly, you probably lose your job as a general manager. Like it's so tricky. And like even me, like one of the big things I do is I find a lot of freelance editors for different YouTube channels that we work on, or the social series I put together. And I recycle editors a lot because we don't have someone that's just like a hiring manager that can just find people. So I have to do my job. And then if I want to replace an editor or find another editor, I have to go on Twitter, tweet something, hopefully someone sees it and it's the right person. And then I get DMs that are like, I got a DM that was like,
Okay.
I don't have any experience, but I know I can do it. And I'm like, I don't, and there's like no link. No, I'm like, oh, like I've been there. I totally know I've been there, but man, come on, make my job easier because I don't have time for this. So it's like such a, is that a catch-22 or it's just like,
I guess.
it's tricky.
That DM is essentially what I sent Travis.
Mm-hmm.
Like 3-4 years ago, whatever. Yeah, it's tough. Man, I had a good point to go off of on that, and I lost it.
Oh, I hope it comes back. I
Wait, go
also had
through
a
it again.
point too. Let's talk
Of
about
course.
players, recycling talent.
Well, I think there are a couple of like interesting problems, I guess, or things that make it even more complicated. And I'm just going to name some coaches, and I'm not calling anyone out as like this person should be fired or shouldn't be here,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll become clear. But look at Weldon, who was just let go from CLG.
Mm-hmm.
They had a terrible year. It's a bummer. It's clear that they're trying things out. A lot of things people questioned, especially like the roster swap at the end. But it is clear, like throughout the year, they're at least trying some stuff. It was weird that they didn't have a roster swap in the middle of the season. Maybe they tried and whatever they wanted didn't work. And so they said, well, let's go with this. We're confident. When they came out in the summer, they looked a lot better for a little bit. And then they fell off again.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are always these times where it's like everyone was like, why wouldn't you roster swap? You look terrible in spring. And then boom, they won like 4 games or something in the first 3 or 4 weeks, and everyone's like, oh wait, okay, it's because they're good. And then no, okay, they're really not. But it's like maybe all of that happened in the summer or in between, and they're like, wait, we are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't know. It's really hard to see from the outside. And so, but then also looking at Weldon, when you look at his kind of beginning of esports, like he was on TSM when they did really well. He helped CLG out like however many years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it really helped him. Like Double specifically was like, oh my God, like this is the first time I've had someone teach me certain things that I'm now using every single day. And if I don't, then I get worse. So like he very clearly added value to a bunch of these teams. He went back to Europe. He was on G2 and they just won everything.
Yeah.
And so, he had a rough year or two. Does that mean he should never be allowed back? Maybe it was all luck at the beginning, or maybe it was just unlucky this past year or two. And so it's just really hard to like look at that and say, it is this or it isn't that or whatever. And then, I mean, you can do the same thing for Curry and D-Lim. These two guys were on Clutch Gaming in 2018. They were there, obviously Clutch did fine in their first split, and then they were really bad in the summer. And so, they were like, I don't, D-Lam like got let go halfway through the season, and then Curry stepped in, and then he like left the team. He was like, I'm not dealing with this. And then they had someone else come in, and so then it's kind of like, all right, well, are these guys going to get jobs again? They both got jobs again, and now they're back. And now FlyQuest, they're back together on the same team. They have Solo on their team, and FlyQuest is all of a sudden the best team in the LCS. And it's like, if you told me exactly 2 years ago, during playoffs of the LCS in 2018 summer, that Curry, D-Lam, and Solo were going to be on FlyQuest of all teams in 2020 summer, beating Team Liquid, TSM, Cloud9, like, I would call you crazy. Like, no, they're not. Those three are not going to get together ever again, and they're definitely not going to be first, but here they are. And so I think stories like that make it really hard when we're not sitting in the room every day watching people coach. And, it's just like, well, Reaper must be good because Cloud9 always makes it, and we keep voting him for best coach of the split. Who knows? Like, Reaper could be playing WoW all day, every day, and maybe maybe Jack is actually the coach. We don't know. We're not watching. Like, I've never asked any of the Cloud9 players, like, is Reaper actually your coach? Does he do anything? So it's just, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say. And I think that goes for players as well, because we recycle players all the time. And it goes for other industry professionals. I think no one in esports is immune to that. I think everyone probably could be replaced with an upgrade somewhere, but yeah, it's always a risk. And so we're all just status quoing our way through, hoping to slowly climb and like get better investors and not operate in the red and whatever. So I don't know. It's complicated for sure.
Yeah, as you talked about that, I was like curious, like, does traditional sports have the same problems? Like, are the teams and coaches and managers, is this happening too?
Well, so the thing about traditional sports is usually there's a lot more hierarchy. And so, I mean, we have high school, or, and below we have, Pee-wee or whatever. And then we have college, we have professional. In esports, we have college, but we don't really use it yet or look at it all that much yet. And so there are some, like I think Invert is maybe the best example, who coached collegiate and then came over. But there aren't many examples of collegiate coaches that have done any professional coaching. And so most of them were just like, either have been here for a really long time, or they just kind of knew some people and kind of helped out and then eventually found a coaching spot, or whatever, or they were a YouTube, person for however many years and then fell into it because they just criticized people on Reddit or something and then they got a job. Like, but in, if you look at football, like, they play so many games and they have so much money and the staffs are so big. And so people can look at them and say like, yes, this guy's doing his job. Like, there's no way to hide. There's no way to like fumble through a season because it's so much more put together. And like, you can't be a terrible football coach. Like, let's say at the collegiate level, you can't be a terrible football coach and accidentally go like 14-2 or something.
Yeah.
Unless you're just so incredibly lucky. But even then, like, you had to have put the team together because coaches are doing that and they have to do all the scouting, and then players have to want to join the team. Usually that has to do with who the coaches are. And then you have like this long history, and a coach will be somewhere for 10, 15 years. And it's like the record was bad, and then it was a little better, and then they made another coaching change, and then the record was great, and then they won all these titles. But here it's like, all right, so patch 9.16, this coach won every single game. Patch 9.17, they actually went 50-50. Patch 9.18, though, they won all their games again. But patch 9.19, they lost every game because they nerfed this champion and they literally couldn't figure it out. And then it's like, oh, well, and then they had to bench this player because there was like an attitude problem between him and someone else. And then just like, how do we measure? There's so many variables.
Yeah.
There are no constants. There's no, like, no one's watching them.
Not enough numbers to go off of too. Like 2 games
and
or 4 games
playing
a patch. Yeah.
We're playing best of ones too, which everyone and their mom knows. Like even my mom knows best of ones are bad. And so it's just like, then really, coaches should be judged based off of scrims as well, because they played 5 times, 10 times as many scrims as actual games, or 20 times as many scrims as actual games. So I don't know. It's really hard to actually see, like, where do we find value? Where do we place value in coaches, also in players, and in everyone else, every other, role or position. I think the only one that's easy is in like videographers and maybe photographers. Very clear, like, this is a good photo. Yeah. Like, this video is good. It has good graphics. It has good transitions. The audio is clear. The color is clear, and it tells a good story.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, other than like those 2 positions, it's pretty hard to tell if someone is doing a good job or not.
Yeah, totally. So actually, oh man, you set me up for a great segue. I wanted to talk about content with you.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you are someone that gets to talk to players. You have to craft your own storylines. What do you think about? And let's just stick with LCS then. What do you think about the LCS storylines? Do you think teams are doing a good job? Do you think LCS is doing a good job? Do you think there's storylines that you wish were fleshed out? Like, I just want to like just open up. Like, what do you think about what's going on with content and stories right now?
So the chat will think that this was a setup, but it really wasn't. I actually yesterday was talking to someone about this exact thing, and I actually think Golden Guardians is doing a better job with the docu-series. And actually, wait, the 4th episode came out today, right?
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet, and I'm so sad because I know what it's going to be about, and it kills me. I wanted Golden Guardians to win that game against TSM so badly.
Yeah.
Because it was such a cool story. And so, I mean, that's as far as my thought on content and narratives. I just want a good story. That's all I care about at this point. Like, when I came into the LCS to cover, I was a TSM fanboy. Now I'm a who makes the best story if they win this game fanboy. Either that or like, who's going to give me a good interview type of thing.
Yeah.
And so like every week, for the most part, it'll switch. Like, there are people that I'm biased for and against. And like on Twitter, I say, like, unbiased all the time, and it's an entire joke because I have biases. And like, people that say, well, you wrote a nice thing about this team and like, you're unprofessional. Like, I'm 26-year-old dude just writing some stories, whatever, man. Like, I'm here because I like esports. I'm going to be biased.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, I enjoy my job and like, I want people to win or whatever. But anyway, that was a long tangent. I think content is tired right now.
Yeah.
I think we have, I mean, I remember watching TSM Legends. That was like what I did. Like, I'd come back from whatever class, like on Thursday or whatever, whenever the episodes used to release, and my roommate would be there on the couch, and he'd be like, dude, finally, like, it took forever. And be like, man, like, my class went long. He's like, come on, get over here. And I'd run over to the couch and we like watch TSM Legends together. Like, we did that every week. We would watch LCS together every week, but then, like, man, we've had TSM Legends for 7 years now. Oh man. Okay. Oh, we have the heist. That's 100 Thieves Legends. Oh, we have, whatever squad, like, that is just Team Liquid Legends. And so I think a lot of those series, and there may be more nuance than that. But I think a lot of times it's like, this is interesting, and I'm glad that we're getting to see some of these stories with these players and getting a little, tidbits of their daily life.
Mhm.
Like I know Squad last year, I think they would like take people out to go painting or whatever. So instead of just doing like the regular thing, it's like, oh, we're painting today instead. Um, I really liked what FlyQuest did last year with the vlog series,
Mhm.
and they flew out Santorin's girlfriend for Valentine's Day and like tricked him. And like they went out to a fancy restaurant, and they did video with her, video with him, and it's like he's out here doing like Tai Chi. Like he wanted to learn Tai Chi, and so they took him to a class, and they like video him learning, and like that type of thing is much more interesting to me
Hmm.
because it's like more intimate. It's more like actually about the player and their personal life and their personality and what they do outside of the game.
Yeah.
Um, and then they're like, oh, this player got picked to do the vlog or whatever, and they went 0-2. And
Mhm.
now I know how this player reacts when they go 0-2.
Mm.
And that's really interesting. And then next week they actually went 2-0, and like you see the player in the background, and he'll like pop his head, and he's like I want my moment in the spotlight. Like I hard carried that game, and you guys only got to see me when I was sad, and like all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I think like that type of content is really interesting and lacking a little bit. I think what you guys did, where you video stuff and then you curate the final product afterward.
Mhm.
I think we need to see more of that, because then you have the whole story.
Yeah.
I think weekly series are cool, but they don't tell us anything. They don't really give us anything. The vlogs gave us some insight into like actual personality. I never knew that Santorin was into like meditation, but then he's told us this once and like told us how he does it and prepares and whatever. And then I got to talk to him about that in an interview. That's really cool, and like you can expand on those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But if I'm watching Squad, it's beautiful. Like they do a really good job. But then a lot of times I'm like, okay, I got to look into their life and how they're practicing, and maybe they had an argument, and then they ate some really cool food because they have an awesome chef and whatever. And like they're really mad that they lost that random game to Cloud9 and whatever. But I don't feel like I know the players as well as when I watch the FlyQuest stuff. And then when
That's
you guys
interesting.
did your thing, it's like what the end is, and so you can actually change the arc of the story. You can insert and highlight certain
Mhm.
clips, and then you can leave out other clips that maybe they could have been interesting if the story was different. But this is how the story is, and it because we're in the future at this point,
Yeah. Yeah.
because all these clips are from a month ago. And so I think that is much more interesting. And I don't think everyone needs to do that, but I mean, Clutch did the TikTok thing in 2019, and it was like, all right, this is really funny. Like, the horses in the back or whatever,
Yeah.
like they
Yeah.
did the flip lights on. So like obviously I remember them still, so they were
Yep. Yep.
funny. But it's like, mm, as far as actual content with value, this is great for Twitter and for TikTok, but it's not like I don't know anything about Huni and Demonte.
Mhm.
They were in all of those TikToks, and I don't know anything about who they are and
Just
like
like
how they actually interact and
Tanner
how they
time.
grew and learn.
That's it.
Yeah, so it's just it's I think like what do I think about NA content narratives? I think they are a little tired,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. I feel the same. Like I think I I don't know if this is right, but the epiphany that I had was that like docuseries are now just glorified React content. It's how did the player react to
Mm,
the weekend? And then
mhm,
everything's just catered around like what does Double feel about that loss? What does Bjerg
mhm.
or yeah, what does Bjergsen, what does Contracts feel about his like his start, his coming back into LC? It's just React content except just framed around the weekend's games, and I'm like, that seems sad to me. Although like a lot of people want to see that. Like I knew that people wanted it, and I kind of wish we showed more in our fourth episode of just like what.
No spoilers.
Yeah, I won't spoil. Yeah, it's hard to spoil, but like I wish we put more of like I'm curious even like what more of like what happened behind FBI's like last play. You know,
Yeah,
we saw his pain, but like I wanted to see like even more, and like the fans want to see like what did people think when Jensen didn't hit Zonia's on that play back in the day, and like seeing those things, people want to see that like that react or those like Twitch clips, but then like that's just feeding like an urge and not like you said like you don't get to really know the player much from just that kind of content.
So that's why like. I think, and I do want to clarify this. The Squad, for instance, I think that series is great, and I'm glad that they do it. I think they do an incredible job with the production. What I wish is that we had, and maybe they do, and we just don't know yet. But I wish we had a Breaking Point-esque type thing. Although I'm not going to talk about Breaking Point because as beautiful as it was. That actually was the real thing that got me into esports, by the way.
Oh, really?
Breaking Point. I watched Breaking Point. It was like, I need to be in esports because a lot of reasons. And at the time, I actually wanted to do like manager stuff. Anyway, I actually wanted to like do what Weldon was doing at the time.
Interesting.
So anyway, beyond that, I think, having documentary stuff like what you guys are doing, because you can kind of control what you include and what you don't, and you can talk to the people after the fact. Like you can do a whole interview. It can be a whole big documentary. I think we need more of that. And I wish that they put all of the effort that they put into Squad. I wish they put that into like this long form documentary thing. And then Squad was more lighthearted and it was more quick and easy.
Interesting.
Because I think making a weekly series super try hard is the wrong way to spend your energy. I think having a feature of some sort, whether it's 40 minutes, 2 hours, I don't know. But I think having that you can put out like leading up to Worlds or something, and maybe you release it all at once or in 5 different parts. I don't care. But that to me is much more compelling than sitting down for 15 minutes a week and having like this very serious thing that tells me nothing, because I watched the games this weekend and I know that they went 0-2 and I know that they're really angry and I know that Impact died 8 times in the top lane, which why did he do that? He's a world champion and he's really good at not ever dying. So like I know that that's going to be half of the episode is talking to Impact about don't die like that, and then he's going to say I'm never going to do it again, and then he's not going to do it again because it was a fluke. And it's like we could have done that in a 3-minute video or a 15-minute video that you didn't try hard on, because it's simple. I want to see like the really big grand stuff. And so I was really glad when you guys announced that you're doing a docu-series. So I hope you and everybody else there like learns and then continues and like, adapts to like certain things that you learned about filming, like maybe when you're editing it, you're like, like why didn't we film that? But I think those types of things are really important to have. And I think that would actually help our narrative situation more, because you brought up the Jensen thing. I actually talked to Jensen about that about a month ago.
Oh yeah.
About that play, because I was watching a game and they were like, it was just like, it was like a week 6 Team Liquid versus FlyQuest or something. And the casters are like, oh, whoever, like someone like Echo would be good here. But of course, Jensen won't play it because blah, 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 the mental block. And after the game, I was like, I have to talk to this guy, because it's got to be like, does he even care? It's been like 5 years or something since this happened. Like, does he even care about Echo anymore? And it turns out he does. He actually still thinks about that play. Now that he's won a title, though, he's like, all right, like now I can kind of chill.
Yeah.
But apparently up until he got that first title, he was like stressed about that moment. because of how it changed his career and how it has shaped him so much. And maybe if none of us ever talked about it, then it wouldn't bother him as much because it wouldn't be a big thing.
Yeah.
But like we collectively have made it a big deal. But I don't know. I think it's weird how we like grab onto stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And I think if we had like different series, like the stuff that you guys are doing, then maybe we have like more interesting stories to talk about.
Yeah, one thing that I really wanted, I was like pushing really hard for from between the splits, and I think we collectively started noticing too. So it's not like my idea or anything, but like we're like, the casters the casters control the narrative of like all the teams, unless we say something or say something first, and the casters and Riot, I think, try to communicate with, like, actually between splits or pre-split, they're just like, hey, is there anything you want? Are you guys have any plans, or what are you trying to push? You know, we're like, oh, you know, Closer's like really good, and TCL MVP. And that was actually when we did the announcement, we were like, keep saying TCL MVP. At first it was like, hey, he was at All Stars, and we're like, no. We gotta change it. We gotta call him TCL MVP, and then everyone just started calling him that, and we're like, oh wait, we have so much control over like what people think. It's so ridiculous. And I'm like, okay, so we need to start like pushing our narrative and like saying what we want other people to say. Like we could say something wrong and people would do it. Not that that's what we did, but we could say like, we could say whatever, and people would just like, as long as we say it enough. People would just like latch on to be like, yeah, you're right, or they'll meme us and then that'll become something else, but like still people are talking about it, because the biggest problem was like no one has been talking about Golden Guardians forever, and I don't blame anyone, because Golden Guardians has been off the map since they started. You know, it was just really excited that Golden State Warriors got into esports, and then after that it's like 2 10th place finishes. Are they going to do a 3rd place finish? Like there's no stories, we're not really doing content. That was before I was here, so you know. And yeah, it was like so tricky. So this split, like we decided to do that docuseries like later, right? We wanted to drop 3 episodes like mid split, but like we need to like do something more. And so we're like, every stat graphic we put out, we were doing those like weekly matchup stuff videos, trying to get the story, but like we're like really intentional about like we need to say the things before other people say it, or like shape our narrative the way we want to, you know. And it was like so powerful and so interesting how that actually caught on. And like even with the docuseries, you mentioned this a bit ago, where I was just like, when we were crafting the first thing, we're just like, we're just gonna put Closer, he's the main character, and we just follow him around and everything's from his point of view, because he's like super popular. His YouTube channel is crazy big with like all his Turkish fans, and he's like our all-star player. And I think at the beginning of the split, it seemed like that he was playing like a lot of like Lee Sins and like flashy champions. But then I think as the team became more cohesive and better, Closer didn't need to do that. And then like FBI was like really, really good, and no one was talking about him. And I remember before all pro voting came out, we're like, before anyone even talks about it, we need to start calling him like all pro like 80 carry. And I think we did something a week before even Riot talked anything about all pro voting. And then we started putting stats out about him and like just really trying to push it. And then finally people were like, oh, he's actually good. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
I fell victim to you. I have been controlled by the media.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And I am the media. No, I was preaching FBI. I think it was like week 7 or something. And you guys put out the like CS per minute based on matchup or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't remember what it was called.
Oh shoot! Expected.
Yeah, I think
CS
expected
difference,
CSD.
Like
Yeah. And I was like, what?
That's a cool stat.
What is this? This is disgusting. Because he's at like 9.8 or something.
Yeah.
And then the next one, I think it was like Double If There's Ven at like 6 something. And then the next one was at like 1. And then everyone else was negative.
Yeah.
And so he was just so far ahead of everyone. And then I started, I was like, well, I got to look into this guy. And so I started looking at some more of his stats. And I was already high. I already thought he's easily top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then like that stat came out. I was like, whoa. Who is this guy? And so then I started looking more into him. I think I'd put him at second. I think after playoffs, it would be him and FBI or him and Tactical convincingly in the top
Mm-hmm.
2. And I don't know who I would put third. And I don't actually know who I'd put first after that Tactical play on Calypso last week. I think FBI is probably better, but it's interesting that you guys kind of like figured that out.
Yeah.
And like that's something that I feel like I can do as well. But I think it's a little harder from unless something just pops off randomly, which I have no control over.
Yeah.
Then like because I don't have like a guaranteed audience, maybe the same way you guys do. But it is kind of fun to like be like, what can I manipulate today?
Oh, totally. Like, honestly, we've been hearing about FBI for over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally was like, okay, Anero, calm down. Okay, all right, John, calm down.
All right,
like,
Anero,
I'm like, okay, yeah, like he has potential. He's like, a diamond that hasn't been like uncut diamond, hasn't been polished yet. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And then honestly, like we had all the support changes, so that can't be easy on him either. So, but yeah, everyone kept talking about it. And we're like, we should have pushed it harder, but previous splits maybe. Actually, no, I take that back because I think the timing was wrong. Even if we pushed it, because people would be like, no, and then everyone would just talk about the support, and we're like, let's not talk about support so much right now. What else was I gonna say? Oh, actually, this this split, I think I had like the biggest mind like change in my mind where when I was thinking about these storylines, because I kind of forgot like why I really got into esports. I love these storylines. One reason why I was a huge Double Lift fan was like I know he trash talks, he's a villain, but he's like the only person willing to do that. And I know he doesn't believe like half the things he says. He's just saying things for the clips because we need something spicy, and he's confident too, Yeah. But I'm just like, oh, like that's why I liked him, because it was such a stale place with personalities early, or not that stale, but like especially now it feels a little more stale with like so what. All right, I lost my train of thought. Either way, I realized like, fans really want to connect with these storylines. Fans really want to get to know these players. And then I was like, these players aren't gonna brand themselves. Like that's really hard. Like it's really commendable that Demonte, like he like goes out of his way to get on like every podcast, do interviews all the time, really sociable. Even like I've told him like, hey, you need to plug your YouTube channel more, and he's like plugging his YouTube channel everywhere he goes. I'm like, this is awesome. Like he's a rare gem when it comes to that. But like really, they're kids that like are trying to play the game. Being competitive in the game is like the number one priority. They think that that's the most important thing, which it's debatable, but from my point of view, it's debatable. But I'm like, I have a responsibility for these players to like get them popular. Like our team has control over this. We could have a player pop off and then do no coverage, not talk about them, not do enough content, and then everyone will continue like forgetting who Golden Gardens is, or like Closer won't get any North American fans and he'll only have Turkish fans if we don't like do that for them. And I was like, and like not only for our organization's benefit, to me personally, if I can do that successfully for a player and they perform poorly, they get kicked out, they have to go back to streaming or whatever, like I've helped them. Because you hear stories with pro players, like they're just back at college doing something maybe, or they're trying to stream or YouTube to no one, and they just like didn't realize the opportunity that they could have taken and they missed out on. And I'm like, wow, that's sad. And I'm like, some of these guys don't know better because they're really focused and they're really pressured and they're really stressed about keeping their job. Like they have to work their 50 60 hour week and then on the side do YouTube for 20 hours. Like that seems ridiculous to some people, So like I've been shaping a lot of my philosophy on like what we've been trying to do around that as well. Just like doing justice for the players, for the fans, and literally just like so the players can have a better life after they leave the organization or whatever the career ends or whatever it may be. Like I didn't realize how much I can affect that. I think to some extent, but yeah.
And I would say I don't know if this is entirely true of everyone on the outside paying attention, or if it's because I get to kind of be a little closer and I get to talk to people. But I would say I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that Golden Guardians is doing that, where some other orgs aren't as much. Um, I would say, even things as simple as the photo shoot that you guys did at the beginning of the year, that was so cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
The fact that you guys got a stylist, you guys got a cool backdrop. It was, I mean, it's very plain, right?
Yeah.
But it was special.
Yeah.
And that's something that teams aren't doing. And then we have the Hanser bomber that just, dropped a month ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Which apparently you guys have been working on for a long time.
Oh gosh.
Like, but like that's like a thing that other orgs don't do as much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's commendable. It's funny you mentioned the Demonte YouTube thing. I interviewed him, I think like right after he decided that he was going to start doing this YouTube channel. And, I asked him at the end, I was like, do you want to say anything to fans or like anything before we leave? He was like, oh yes, I have a YouTube channel. I was told I need to tell people. So I'm telling everyone here, like, please watch my YouTube. So I guess that was from you as well, like making sure that he remembered. But yeah, so I think it's really cool that you guys are doing that. And I don't think that happens everywhere. So, thank you for that.
I think it's it's funny. Like I never was a person that wanted to be a bandwagon fan. Like I never wanted to be on a first rooting for the first place team. If I had no investment, it was always an underdog. And then like I was like, wow, things would be so easy, so much easier if I was working at like a different team that was winning. But then the really cool thing about working with Golden Guardians, especially when they're 10th place, we have to try so much harder, and we can't just be late. We can't just put out a docu-series that's just like everyone else's because no one's going to care. So we're like, what can we do? What crazy idea do we have today? And it's a crazy challenge. I love the uphill battle. That's just like my personality. I want to be like, I put out a meme and it just sucked. And not everyone liked it because I'm TSM and I put out a meme and it was okay, So it's like when I put something out, like I remember, so my claim to fame is last year there are two meme videos that I put out. That one was Froggen Death Note like mashup, and then the other video was Hunter missing the Orn ult, which turned into the shooting star meme.
Oh god, yeah.
And those were the two highest social series pieces of content that we put out on Golden Guardians, I think ever, or at least on Twitter, and maybe not excluding the announcement, that Golden Guardians is joining the LCS.
Yeah,
and I think that was like when I was freelancing as a video editor, or something. So like, I knew that was good, and it had nothing to do with like we had a lot of followers. Yeah. Because we were a 10th place team. No one cared about Golden Guardians at that time. Like no one cared about us. I was like, oh, that's cool. So like that's the unique experience, at least a silver lining on being like a team that's not first place all the time or always winning. And I hope that other teams, and I think other teams that are like that, like are really trying to think creatively, like FlyQuest and Evil Geniuses, like rebrand, like those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's a fun challenge, and it forces us to be better, which is, I like that. It's fun.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think that's a great point, and that's my biggest complaint right now is if TSM doesn't win for however many years, which was true for up until now, then they don't have a brand that they can fall back on.
Mm.
If FlyQuest are terrible next year, it's not going to matter. As far as their brand, they've set themselves up so well in 2020 that, as long as they continue and they continue being like true to that, and they don't do anything too crazy, or they don't do anything like that's going to ruin the image that they've made, then even if they go to 10th place, then people will be like, like you got to get a better roster, or you got to get a better coach so that we can have Tree Quest again. Because whatever this version is, like, this sucks.
Yeah.
But I think, if and like 100 Thieves, man, they're having a tough time, but they're still 100 Thieves. And like, people can meme about them being an apparel company because they've set themselves up so well in other parts of the org that they actually can be memed for like having such good clothing.
Yeah.
And that actually just helps them sell more clothing.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so, there are things that people have done, and I think Golden Guardians is on the way as well. And it's very helpful that you had such a strong season.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, it seems like that's the easiest way. Like maybe if FlyQuest had been 8th and then 9th, then people would be like, "Oh yeah, that's a cool thing." But because they branded and they did well, I think they've made themselves future proof. And so, yeah, I don't know. I hope that we see more stuff like that,
Yeah.
because then we get better narratives, we get better insights into players, we have more compelling stories. So the more big brands that we have in esports, the better.
And then if everyone gets better, then I have to get better, which is always good too.
Yeah,
Forces everyone to get better. Competition's good.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is past 60 minutes now, so I want to respect our times and stuff. But any last thoughts? Anything you want to plug or say?
Yeah, sure. I'll plug my Twitch. I just started streaming 1 week, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, essentially. I got to affiliate.
Nice.
Thank you for there are some people here who watch my stuff a lot. Thank you all so much. I'm going to do my first affiliate stream in like 5 minutes.
Ooh.
Or whenever we finish. I'm just gonna go to the bathroom and grab a Subway sandwich. Hey, Subway, you want to sponsor me or what? And then I'm gonna do some photo editing. So I guess that'll be the second shout out. Is I'm trying to do a lot more photo stuff. I want to do more photography work, and then otherwise, I don't know. I've got some spicy features coming up soon, or not features, columns, opinion pieces. That's it. I just interviewed Santorin. It was a lot of fun. Go read that. InvenGlobal.com. That's it. Those are all my plugs.
Cool.
But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks, Park. This was a lot of fun. So I think a lot of people are gonna enjoy this when this comes out.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. All right, that's it for this episode. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.